Ollie, welcome to Camber Conversations. We were getting into the flow of things before we hit record, so let's give some value to the listeners, not waste any of the energy before we start.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, so you can get yourself into a deep and meaningful conversation before the actual podcast, can't you? You're like, oh, this is content, shut up.
I wish we were recording. Yeah, absolutely. One of the key terms that I associate with you, Ollie, is breakpoint. Yeah. And it's a phrase that you bring to life and you help illustrate people to understand theirs and understand what that might mean for them. From your own personal story, what was your breakpoint that you identify that really has set you on this trajectory in life that you're on now?
Yeah, I'll jump straight into it and be not go into too much detail because it is quite a long-winded story, but my first experience of life on this planet was breakpoint, and that's why my business is called Breakpoint, because of that. And that was my first memory of life on this planet. Was 10 years old, young boy at the circus. I got attacked by a fully grown chimpanzee. And it was a moment where I thought I was going to die. And when I was sat underneath that chimp, it was tearing lumps out I said lumps, it was, ripping bits off my arms. There was blood flying everywhere. I actually thought I was going to die. I'd not been in that situation before, 10 years old, you know what I mean? But I realized in that moment, if I just lay there, I was just going to die. And, I knew that one side of me wanted to just curl up and die and just take whatever and just allow destiny just to take over and see where it went. And the other side of me, I heard a voice in my head that said, you don't die today. And that took me to a different place. It took me to this realm that I'd never had a purpose or reason to be in before. And that was this inner potential. And that inner potential, it was almost like this negotiation in a very quick amount of time. It was like, if you do fight back, it's going to up the ante. You're going to take things to the next level. But the other option is I die. And all this is happening is like, this is the condensed moment, but it was like, oh, fuck it, I'm not dying today. So I did react. And if it wasn't for that reaction, I wouldn't be here today. But that was my first break point. It was not caring about the outcome, but stepping into that short-term discomfort for long-term gain. And, I didn't sit there having a debrief at that moment at 10 years old, but, I'm still unpicking stuff from that time in my life because it did change the destiny of my life. It was a massive influential part of my life moving forward for good and a lot of bad reasons as well. So, three things sort of looking back on that. And that's first of all, the fact that was breakpoint, short-term discomfort for long-term gain. And that's how I live my life. And I feel that that's how everyone should be living their life. We should be leaning into the wind, not lay back. And that, I believe, honestly, is the answer to a lot of people's issues out there. We're just not leaning in enough. Secondly, it was the fact that understanding that inner potential. And that would help me get through Special Forces selection. It would also help me on the brink of me not thinking I wanted to be here any longer. But the third thing on top of that is the fact that regardless of your situation, we always have a choice. You just have to keep moving
Personal
forward.
Agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been moments in my life, like I alluded to before, that, I didn't want to be here. I thought that was the option, but, I just knew there was a different way. It was understanding that even in your darkest moments, there is always another way. But, sometimes taking that severe action, which I know some people are on the brink of doing so, is the easy way out. Although it doesn't sound it, it's the path of least resistance.
And it's the pain you cause down the line from that for those that you love as well. It may feel like you've solved your problem, but you've actually caused a problem for many others as well.
Yeah.
The first point you made there was about that's how people should live their life and lean into the discomfort, make the difficult choice, do the hard thing. I think in today's society, as you hinted towards, many people are living life on autopilot. They're self-soothing, they're sedating, they're trying to forget that life isn't how they want it. And the body keeps score and the mind will give you clues that you're not living in a way that you should, whether that's within the alignment of your true values or within your true desires. And people listening to this, they're opting out already of mainstream because they're listening to a podcast that's about self-development, it's about self-betterment. They're listening to somebody that was in the Special Forces that has achieved remarkable things with his brain, his body, his business. What advice would you give to somebody that's maybe sat listening and feels like they aren't leaning into the harder things that they should be doing in life?
Yeah, one thing for sure, like this operating system, I always look at it like this, right? You've got a system on a car these days, right? Modern cars these days, when it's struggling down the motorway, it'll go into limp mode, right? And that allows the system to go like 25 miles an hour or something. You can still keep on going, but it wants you to get to the garage as soon as you can to get repaired before it absolutely fucks up the whole system. Now, I always use that sort of example, analogy, or whatever you want to call it, as in this complex and amazing, and it is amazing, absolutely amazing system every single person's got. Do you not think we have a warning system? We have a warning system that taps you on the shoulder and says, look, we need to change things up a bit. You need to change your routine. You need to get out of what you're doing and find something else. And that, for me, is when you've got a real, well, the onset of depression. You know, that to me is the limp mode of the vehicle down the motorway. And all it's simply saying is, hey, we need to change things up a bit. That's our early warning system. But what do we do in that moment? We tend to become very insular. And I've been there myself. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to let anyone know that I'm going through a moment of weakness. I don't want to let the world know that I'm a former Special Forces soldier and I'm all of a sudden looking weak and pathetic. You know, I want to become very insular and not change the pattern of behaviour. And I go into severe survival mode.
Protectionism as well, Ollie.
Exactly, yeah. And when you're in that survival mode, you don't want to upset the status quo. You know, you imagine someone that's just, you know, landed on a desert island, and they just want to bring all the resources they can to make sure they live as long as possible. And they don't want to step outside that zone. They don't want to upset the status quo, but just over the mountain, there's a resort. But we won't go over there, you know what I mean? And that's where people are saying, I really feel everyone is in this place at the moment, right? And that is the fact that you imagine you're on a beautiful ship and you're heading to this amazing destination and you're so excited about that. But all of a sudden you're out to sea and you're too far to go back. All of a sudden over the tannoy, the ship's sinking. We need all hands on deck to go down to fix this hole in the bottom of the ship. Otherwise, everyone's going to die. So everyone forgets about the destination. They're not interested in the destination because your focus is now in the very moment of that survival. Fix the ship, otherwise we're going to die. And I feel the way society has everyone at the moment is they're all fixing a hole. They're not interested.
Survival mode.
We're all in survival mode. And from the moment people are waking up to getting on their phones and everything else, it's death, doom. And there's two things in the human mechanism that will grab your attention regardless of what you're doing, good or bad: sex and death. Now, the media is focused on sex and death. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit of stuff in the cracks, but the premise of a newspaper and the media is sex and death. Look at the recent things that have just going on.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. Exactly. And they, you know, and obviously that's then exploited, that's amplified and everything else. And in this world of absolute distraction, you know, our brain, 5 to 9 bits of information at any one time. When we're stressed, 1 to 2. And that's generous saying 2. You know, so to keep us in that state of absolute stress, we can't create in that. When you're in survival, you can't create. There's no brain and heart coherence. You can't create. You know, and that's where we're being held at the moment. But it's a choice. It's a choice. You know, I can sit there reading across the media and all this stuff and all this thing. The world's coming to an end. And that's been going on forever. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, you have a choice to step outside of that and you choose your own ecosystem.
It's unplugging, isn't it? And I know from your story, when you went through a very difficult period, you spent some time on almost a remote location and you unplugged from these sources that were death and sex and just sheer anxiety-inducing nonsense that we can engage ourselves with all the time. So perhaps one of the first steps is to remove ourselves and remove some of that stimulus. Yeah,
100%. It's almost like you imagine like on social media, right? You choose your algorithm. You ask yourself, what is your algorithm? Because if you're looking at stuff and it's news feeds and all this and all negative stuff, even negative people that you don't really like but you're following anyway, that's a choice, right? You just unfollow. I know it's certainly I'm one that, you know, I don't spend loads of time on social media, but it's a necessary evil for me. But the thing is, I have stuff that pops up that I go, wow, that is a true benefit of social media. So I choose what I'm looking at and listening to each and every day. And stuff I don't like, I just unfollow. I don't want to see it again. You know, so we all have a choice. We all have a choice to choose what algorithm. I mean, listen, I stopped buying newspapers and watching the news a long time ago. From that moment you've just alluded to, Cole, when I was in that house, it was a house I was in. I was switched off, no distractions. I was the only thing I wanted to focus on. I had to, and I've not stopped doing that since this day. I have to be dead to not know what's going on in this world. I don't need to plug myself in from the moment I wake up in the morning and turn my phone off and be distracted straight away. Sending the signal to my brain that I am open for distraction.
If it's big enough, it will reach you.
Exactly.
And if it's fundamental enough and we won't get fully into the whole C19 period, but you got told by all your friends what the new restrictions were or what the death count was and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to watch BBC News or whatever nonsense propaganda channel was putting it out there. I could just be like, okay, well, if it means that I can't drive to this particular part of the country just now, or I need to wear this particular thing to get into this area, or I need to have this test to get on a flight, okay, fine, I'll just learn about that and I'll try and find a way around it.
Yeah.
But that was just the nature of the game, and I think that's the same for a lot of current affairs just now, where we get sucked into different stuff, and sometimes it's stuff that feeds maybe our political or social or economic biases, and we consume that more freely, but that also is dysregulating you as well.
Yeah, 100%. This is the reason why they call stuff a program. It's a program because it's influencing how you think. Do you know what I mean? And this is why, people just need to unplug. And I'm not saying it's like, everything's bad and the world's trying to kill us, whether it is or not. That's your personal opinion. But, we do have a choice on what we tune into.
For too long, Brits have not been able to invest like Americans. They've not had the same confidence, the same clarity, or even the same returns. Think Money is here to change all of that, and today's podcast is sponsored and supported by the Think Money Academy. You'll know the founder, David Bell, who was a hugely popular guest on the podcast during 2025, and he has one simple mission. I only care about Brits investing more in shares. Their system teaches you how to trade like a pro rather than a punter, and remove that stress, noise, and chaos of trying to beat the market with things like day trading, and instead you're going to use non-emotional, systematic, trend-based following. People inside the academy have had incredible returns, 56% on Kratos, 60% on GoDaddy, and even 218% on Robinhood, all by following their framework. If you want to invest today and learn how to invest properly, you can hit the link in the show notes and take the assessment and book a call. And don't forget, you can use the code CAMBRO for 10% off. The link is think-money/academy. What sorts of things would you encourage people to consume instead if they're not using their time to consume things that are damaging them?
Well, listen, the first thing I do straight away is break the habit of behavior. We've got to understand that our subconscious mind is 95% of who we are. And over time, what's basically happened is the slave has become the master. Now, the slave is the 95% program, that's your subconscious. The true master is your conscious mind. And your conscious mind is the thing that's feeding information to your subconscious. But the thing is, we're so consumed now that we've allowed the servant, the subconscious, to be the master, because it's a beautiful mechanism we've got, right? Because when we are consumed, when we've got stuff on our minds, the program takes over. So we haven't got this over convoluted, cognitive overload. So basically it's a brilliant system how it works like that. But if you're allowed to sit there on autopilot constantly, you're just part of the program. Your life is being dictated based on the emotions of the past. Your brain is looking to plan your future based on your emotional state from the past, and we can switch off from this and start to make this, like in my head, like in the morning, like, don't get in the ice bath, it's a waste of time, it's stupid, it's freezing cold, it's horrible, all this stuff. Shut up, I'm getting in the ice bath. I call it my Zen commandments. It's like I made this thing, it's called your Zen commandments. It's the rules you have, you know what I mean? And your mind is always looking to find comfort for you. People have got to really understand as well that this mechanism, you go back to our earliest survival days, whatever they were, there was two things that we're programmed to do whenever we can, and that's eat food and also rest. So you imagine now in today's society, we have a lifestyle where we've got every 100 meters a food outlet, and also the fact you don't actually have to do anything. You can press a button, I can have something delivered to my door.
Huge convenience,
especially here in Dubai. Yeah. So unless you're switched onto that, you can turn into the laziest, most unchallenged person,
and gluttonous
ever.
As well, which is key, and that's a sin.
Absolutely. So people, this is a case of just stepping outside of that. I've never been good at following even in the military, I was like a pain in the ass to the hierarchy. You can ask anyone, they'll agree with that straight away. I could do my job, but I was just like, if someone told me to go left, I want to go right. You know what I mean? And this is what I think people need to start doing. If anything's advised to me, if something is advised and it comes through the TV or on a news channel or anything, I'm looking the other way. I'm thinking, what's the other way? And it's not to say that I'll always go that way. I just think, hold on.
You'll question it, and I want to
question it. And that's the beauty of evolution, right? Why have we stopped doing that? Why have we stopped questioning? Why have we stopped saying, hold on a sec, that's how we've evolved through challenge.
A phrase that you like, Ollie, common sense is not common practice, particularly not in 2025 or 2026 when listeners are listening to this.
And then if you do step outside the realm, we turned into this flipping communist society where everyone attacks you for it. You know, if you want to tell me the Earth's flat, I will appreciate that. It is, of course, flat.
I've not been down this rabbit hole. Let's see.
But no, listen. But if you want to tell me the Earth is like a pyramid, I will listen to you. If you've got an opinion, I will listen to you, Cole. You know what I mean? I won't sit there going, "You're an idiot," and start getting angry. This is the beauty of a democratic society when we can openly discuss things, and this is how humanity's evolved for years and years and years. Not by someone saying this is how it is and that's it.
If we're speaking about communism and the state of the UK in particular, something I've noticed is that those that hold themselves up as the most tolerant and the most woke are typically the most intolerant of a viewpoint that sits outside of their realm of acceptability. So if you have a particular stance on the experimental medical treatment during C-19, or perhaps around climate change, or perhaps around immigration, if you don't hold a viewpoint that sits within their worldview, they're extremely tolerant within that. They're very accommodating to all sorts of very strange behaviours. But if you sit with outside of that, you become demonised, and they dehumanise you with an ism or an ist that allows you to be fair game, to be targeted, to be cancelled, to be shouted down, to be piled onto. And I find that a remarkable thing about the left in particular, where if you don't agree with their worldview, you're fair game to be treated in any particular way, whereas they seem to advocate for the treatment, fair treatment, or equality of treatment for all sorts of different groups, unless, of course, you sit outside those groups that they like.
Yeah, definitely. And this is certainly for me, when it came into those strange times around 2020, it wasn't a case that I was like a conspiracy theorist or anything. I just wanted to make my own mind up. Do you know what I mean? And but then I had a lot of people, because they knew some of my views, and it was like, I want, because I'm still to this day, and it's getting, the more knowledge I'm getting, the more passionate I am about this. The body heals itself. The body is the pharmacy, right? And when it comes to, pharmaceutical companies, medical companies, there is no wealth in health. Do you know what I mean? So when it comes to someone telling me I've got, I've always been, I do some really, what people would consider strange, some of my habits and behaviors, and some of the things I haven't touched tap water for years. I've always been so, because I just believe that is life, right? It's 65, 75% we are of water, and we don't really focus on the quality of it. So I've always distilled my water. I put the minerals into it, my own minerals, it's like a calculated process. Yeah. People would think I'm mad for that. But the thing is, I truly believe that we have this amazing system. And, I'm not going to let someone tell me all of a sudden, this is the health advice, especially when it comes from the government. I'm not going to do that. When you've got a health minister that's bigger than this table.
Yeah, that's right. You wouldn't take advice from a fat PT, and you wouldn't take wealth advice from a broke
you
financial
don't
advisor.
get a haircut from a mechanic, do you?
Yeah.
Well, if I had to, I suppose.
The tap water thing's interesting, and fluoride was something that I learned a little bit more around. So typically it's always in your toothpaste and your mouthwash. Started to remove that. Typically it's in the water. Started to remove that as well, because it appears there's a link between that and blocking the pineal gland, which plays such a key role in our mind, our gut, and our body function.
Yeah, no, all this stuff, and it's I think as well, when it comes to this stuff, it's all been demonized, hasn't it? It's like, oh, you're a tree hugger. There is actually a lot of science around hugging a tree.
Well, and grounding's very popular as well.
Grounding is that's amplified by hugging a tree. What's more grounded than anything? Sticking out of the ground. And grounding has been scientifically proven to change your blood cells. It's shown. But a lot of this stuff is like, oh, this stuff's a load of rubbish, and it's like alternative medicine. Alternative medicine to me is pharmaceuticals. That's alternative. But a lot of this stuff, I love it now, because a lot of people are starting to switch onto this, to the grounding, looking at their water, looking at the things that they consume, starting to appreciate. I think it's a simple process, right? The further we move away from source, with all these chemicals and all this process, the worse it's going to be for your body. Can't handle it, and that's when you go to a state of dis-ease, and before you know it, you're struggling with all kinds of things. So I'm the most healthiest I've ever been in my life right now. And that will keep on growing and growing and growing, because about 12, more than that, I really started to look at cellular health. And that is looking like we're probably around about 50 trillion cells. I've not counted, but we're around about 50 trillion cells. Now, if you start to look at each individual cell and start to look at your health from a cellular level, it changes everything. You'll start to think about the water that you're consuming. You'll start to understand. I mean, I drink so much salt. Salt. So what we've been told, don't have
salt's bad for you.
Oh, you've got to reduce the salt.
Bad for
and
your heart.
it is if you have that shit that's table salt, which has got about 2 minerals in it. But if you go to the Celtic salts and things like that, absolutely amazing. And what people don't understand, the water we put into our body changes form and it turns into a plasma. That one then works with the fascia. You know, I'm saying this for the audience. I don't know if you know, you probably know some of this stuff, Cole, but you know that sort of sheen when you get like a lump of meat out, you know, like a pork joint or something, whatever it might be. I better not say pork, actually, we're in Dubai.
But sorry, one of the most interesting things about
Yeah.
Dubai is it's a very strict culture, but it's very tolerant.
Yeah.
You can come here and practice Christianity as long as you're respectful of the home nation, which
Yeah.
everyone that comes here has total
Don't you
respect.
think that's absolutely amazing though when you look at our country, the UK, and it's
the total opposite.
everyone's fighting. So we've got so many different nationalities here. No one's fighting. So
It's not allowed.
it's not allowed for a start. But the thing is, it's not natural for us to fight each other. And this is the thing. So then you've got to understand it's being engineered in the other place. The division, the
West,
conflict in the West, it's being engineered. You know, naturally, we are not fighting. We don't want to just fight because the sake of
Evolutionarily,
fighting.
we should cooperate because it leads to our survival, our ability to
Cooperate.
rest,
It's like a team,
sleep,
isn't it?
and procreate.
Yeah, it's a team, isn't it? It's a team effort, community, and everything. Anyway, where were we? We're on the water, weren't we?
Yes, we were.
So yeah, it's you know, and that sheen you get on the meat is your fascia. And that fascia is your energy system, you know, and that when it works with the plasma, as the water goes into your system, people should look at water as a delivery system for minerals. But what have we been told as well? Have about 3 litres of tap water a day, which is then getting rid of all your essential minerals out of you. This is why people are depleted. This is why we haven't got any energy. So now I only have water. I mean, your body will tell you, look, I really want a glass of water. Just get something into me because I need it. It will tell you that. But if I'm not doing that, every time I consume something, it's got minerals in that are supplementing my body. And this is why I feel, at 55 in a few weeks, I feel absolutely on fire.
Yeah, amazing, Ollie. I love that. When I reflect on your breakpoint, there's a phrase that a gentleman, a men's coach on the podcast used, that a man's work begins in pain. And sometimes as men, albeit this may be stereotypical, you have to have something that's challenging for you to go and make a change. So we're speaking just now about people living on autopilot. There's almost like what's called the Regent Beta paradox, where things aren't bad enough for them to make a change. They're just not great. So for example, they're in a job they don't like, but they're paid just enough to pay their bills and their mortgage. They don't have the money to go on the holiday or to buy their family the things they want to, but they stay stuck because it's not bad enough to make a change. They're in a relationship where their partner doesn't cheat on them, but they argue a lot of the time. But the arguments aren't explosive enough for it to come to an end. So sometimes people need to be in a situation that's bad enough that merits that you want to make a change or move away from it. What was happening in your life that's caused you to make changes at different times?
Yeah, I love that topic, mate. I really do. Because the thing is as well, I've recently said this. I said to my wife a few weeks ago, I said, sometimes the car has to crash before you can mend it. Do you know what I mean? Because yeah, it's almost like that struggling car. It's battered. It needs, you know, it's a bag of shit. But the thing is, until that thing crashes, someone won't actually go and get it fixed. And the thing is as well, when people are in that, you know, they're in this job or whatever, a relationship where, you know, it's just surviving. This is typical survival, isn't it? Because if I step outside of this, I've also got a possibility that I might ruin this.
It could get worse. That's right. Whereas if it's already absolutely terrible,
yeah, at least I can manage it, and it's predictable. And this is what the mind wants. The mind wants predictability. So for me in my life, right, I was drinking too much. I was taking drugs. I was snorting coke. I was doing everything I could get my hands on, and then wondering why I was in a shit state, wondering why my life was in absolute turmoil. So for me, in that moment, knowing it was no good, knowing that I just couldn't keep on doing this, it's easy, right? Stop. Just stop. Start living healthier. Stop the drugs. Stop the drink. Start to have some goals. Start to really create something amazing. That easy. But as far as your survival mind is concerned, that is absolute horror because it's uncharted territory. It's not done it before.
it's an unknown.
It's an unknown. So please keep on doing what you're doing each and every day because it's not killed you yet.
It's predictable.
It's predictable.
It's not safe, but it feels safe.
Exactly. And it's because it's familiar, it's safe. And this is the mechanism. Now, I honestly believe, and we kind of had this chat before we started, is the fact that when it comes to mental health and it comes to us feeling a sense of the mechanism, the operating system needs to feel a sense of progress. And this is why it's always about leaning in. You've got to have a little bit of resistance at least. When you've got no resistance, it tells the operating system we're not making progress. And this is what people just don't understand. We're sitting there in these perceived areas that they call comfort zones. I mean, my comfort, and it kind of sounds like, you know, I can imagine some people saying, why would I want to do that? Live in discomfort. But I don't live in discomfort. I've created my comfort where it is leaning into resistance. And I'm pretty sure you have as well, Cole. You know, you understand that pushing against the grain and feeling that resistance is actually giving you that zest for life. And when you're not doing that, you can go to your comfort zone, but you don't set up camp there and live there and stay there. You go back there to recuperate. I mean, for me, like we're going into Christmas now. You know, before I came here, like I eat OMAD, right? So I eat one meal a day. And I have an eating window between 4 and 7 in the evenings, right? But now we're going into Christmas. Before I came here, I had a mince pie. You know what I mean? I had a gingerbread latte this morning after my 50k cycle ride with my stepson. But the thing is, I will go into that. I'll do that for a little bit because I know the mechanism to then get out of that. And then, you know, after Christmas.
You've been over the course and you know that you can switch it back on when required.
And I enjoy that process. I love that process, and I love the fact that
let's get back to it.
Let's get back to it, and it's like, you know, I'll have put on a few pounds up before the end of Christmas, and then straight into it, bang, and I can see those results. I know the mechanism, I know the process, and I love that process.
Have you ever rubbed beef fat on your face? Sounds crazy, but that's exactly what I've been doing since January. Those that know me well know that I'm all about removing toxins from my life. Things like getting a filter for my tap water, not eating ultra-processed foods in my diet, even spraying aftershave on my clothes rather than on my skin. And that got me thinking, if I'm not spraying aftershave on my skin because of it disrupting my hormones, what on earth am I putting on when it comes to a moisturizer? So when my good friend Adam Ash and previous guest on the podcast launched No Tox, it was a no-brainer. It's made from all natural ingredients, mainly from raw honey and beef tallow, and my skin has never looked better. If you want to benefit from the tallow glow and remove toxins from your life, then hit the link in the show notes to notoxskincare.co and use the code Colin15 for 15% off. We were speaking about the wonders of Dubai, and one of the things that's so great is that all the different people I meet up with here, even if it's just for a coffee or lunch or dinner, we talk about interesting shit at the dinner table. So we were talking about you're either progressing or you're stagnating, and stagnation's death. And I think a lot of people who aren't happy with where they're at just now, but aren't unhappy enough to make a change, they're stagnating, they're coasting, they're just sitting where they are and they're fading away. And that for me is one of my greatest fears in life, that I don't really know what my potential is, but I would like to explore what might be possible. And there's different people I take inspiration from online, from my family heritage, from the conversations I have with friends. A life where you don't explore what you might be capable of is one that terrifies me. And that means that you must lean into the discomfort, because anytime you break a new plateau or a new level, or you get through the glass ceiling, or you do something new, there should be a level of, oh, that was a bit new, that was a bit sore, that was a bit scary. But on the other side of it is a level of exposure therapy and competence that comes with that. And then you get ready for the next thing.
I absolutely love it. Are you reading my mind? Because I absolutely love the fact that you've talked about, we're in flow, mate, because this is something I've just gone through recently, and it's been a massive realization for me. Let's talk about quantum mechanics, because we are all, every single person is sat at the threshold each and every day of so many different opportunities of who they could be. And that can be negative, it can be positive, extremely positive as well. Now, the mechanism always wants to do something that's in line with who we were yesterday, because that's familiar, safe, we've covered that. But for me personally, you know, I preach this stuff. I preach this stuff constantly. I've got a group that I have like almost like an inner circle group, and we talk about this stuff constantly. Now, what you just talked about happened to me just recently, right? Like I've come to Dubai. It's an amazing place where you feel guilty if you're not out there doing something physical every day before even work starts. You know, it's like the sun's shining, there's no excuse. The facilities here are amazing, and you get out every day. Now, someone recently asked me to do a triathlon. And they were all this, it's called the T100. I didn't realize how big it was, but it's a global thing. They go around all over the world and do this T100. So it's 100 Ks, 2K swim, 80k bike ride, 2k swim, 80k bike ride, 18-kilometer run. So anyway, all the lads that I know were like putting in for this thing, saying, why don't you just come and do this with us? And I knew that I had to do a triathlon because I'm destined to do an Ironman soon. I thought I've got to do I've never done a triathlon before. So anyway, I went along and signed up for it and started training and everything. The week before, I got in touch with all the lads. I'll meet you. Oh, we're not doing it. Every single one of them had dropped out. And I was like, straight away, my mind went, yeah, don't do it. Your mates aren't doing it. Don't do it. And then I heard that voice that said, do it. Just do it. You imagine how they'll, how it will look to everyone, how it will look to yourself and feel to yourself. Anyway, I just thought I'd do it. And it was funny because before I actually did it, because it was my first one, I was actually looking at the times of at what point do they take you off the course and say, look, your times are absolutely shit. You just need to stop. So I was actually looking into that. Anyway, cut a long story short, I did the triathlon in my age group, 55 to 59. I think it was something like that. That was my age group. And I did it. I met a guy there that used to be in the SBS as well. And he was chatting to me. And then afterwards, he sent me a message. And I said my time and everything and what place I came. And I got a message back. He said, you do realise you've just qualified for the Worlds? And I was like, what? And the last thing I wanted to do was another triathlon. I was like, no shit. So the first triathlon, I then qualified for the World Championships, which I've actually just come back from Qatar last weekend. And done.
We were texting.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually came 7th in the world in Qatar, which was absolutely amazing. Could have done better, but I will do better. I'll smash it next year. But the point I'm doing is talking about this is not because I want people to think, oh, you're so amazing, Ollie. The fact of the matter is, it's changed the direction of my life. Just because like someone said to do it and has put me into a different direction of discomfort, while I wasn't sure about the outcome, I didn't really, I wasn't doing it because I was guaranteed an outcome. I was thinking, shit, I might be pulled off the course because the time might be that terrible. But it's pushed me into a different direction. And honestly, when I was doing the bike ride, I was going around in the bike ride the first time, right? I was nearly, I don't mind saying this, I was nearly in tears. And the reason I was is because I was when it comes to the bike, I'm an absolute maniac, as it turns out. So I made up so much time. But on there, I was just thinking how I'd blocked, how the identity that I'd been shaping for so many years was blocking my true potential.
Interesting.
And for me to say that, people would probably think, well, fucking hell. You know what I mean? But I built an identity that was resting on its laurels.
Okay.
I truly believe. You know what I mean? I was living within my limits, and the mechanism wants to live within its limits, right? You know what I mean? That's just its design. It wants to live smaller. So for me, it was almost like years of this. And I did, before I joined the military, it was like I was a really good runner. I was a county runner and all this, that, and the other. I did really well. And it's almost like I then got into the military and things got a little bit disjointed. And then it's almost like looking back from that race thinking that identity has held back my potential. So really for anyone listening to this, where just because we're not trying things, we're not stepping into this discomfort, you might be blocking the potential of who you truly are. And there will be a lot of people. Now, when we fail, what do we want to do? We want to go small, right? That's the natural instinct. We fail at business, we fail in life, we fail at something physical. The natural thing is, I need to go smaller.
Step back.
But maybe, just maybe, there's a tap on the shoulder saying, this is not for you. I need you to go up. And when it comes to business as well, Cole, you imagine that, because definitely when it comes to business, how many people have shrunk when really...
Let's scale back. Yeah. When really maybe we should aim for something higher. And again, corny phrase, but cliches are cliches for a reason. Shoot for the moon, you land among the stars. Yeah. One thing that really interested me was that when your friends that encouraged you to do the triathlon dropped away, you considered, I'll do the same. However, you decided not to. And often in life, something that I've tried to pride myself on is being a man of my word and following through on my intentions. And typically your intentions are set when you're feeling your best, you're most inspired, you're most encouraged. And then at some point in time, that will wane, whether it's motivation, whether it's discipline, whether it's just your own self-view or self-image of yourself. But you decided to follow through and still do it. And look what it has led to. Now, it didn't have to be 7th in the Worlds. It could have just been you finishing the initial triathlon and actually been like, okay, I was a man of my word, I showed up and I did it. But ultimately, we know that the potential in somebody like yourself is greater than that. So, and you've started to achieve that, and you know there's maybe another higher ceiling to go beyond. many people would benefit from trying to reshape their identity as somebody that follows through on their best intentions, regardless of how they feel down the line. So some of my mantras or phrases that I've journaled about or written over the years are, I'm a man that follows through on the things that I said I was going to do when I felt my best self, even when I now don't feel like being that guy. And you want to be the guy before you become him.
Yeah.
And that was something that you did there. And I'm sure you've applied that across many different areas in your life too.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point. And I think at the end of the day, you know, everyone can take something from that and understand that, like me, okay, that situation. So in that moment, let's talk about that moment. Everyone's pulling out. Oh, I'll pull out. But I think awareness is key here, right? So why then? This is going on in my head. So why are you pulling out? Oh, because my mate's not doing it. So why are you not doing it?
How does that relate to you?
Yeah, how does that relate to you? And then you realise you're just finding an excuse. You know, and I went through the why. You keep dropping in the why. You get to the root cause of it. There is no reason.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself enough times, because your brain will always tell you a story that protects it.
Yeah.
And it keeps it feeling safe, and it protects your self-image of yourself as well. And sometimes when you ask those further why questions, it becomes uncomfortable for you to actually consider the truth. Actually, I'm doing it just because I'm a bit scared. I'm dropping out because I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit anxious about this.
Scared of failure.
But I'm not an anxious, but I told myself I'm not an anxious person. I'm not a scared person. I'm a brave person. I'm somebody that's capable. Okay, well, show us that then. Because know them by their deeds, not by their words.
Yeah.
And I think if more and more of us follow through on our intentions and our actions and behaviors and habits were in line with the self-view of ourselves, I think the mental health crisis would be a lot smaller. Because I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that, particularly guys in the UK just now, where financially it's a bit more challenging than it has been for a long time with a lot of the political situation, they have this higher ideal of themselves in terms of they maybe want to be a homeowner, they want to have a particular car, they want to have a particular partner, they want to have a particular body. And then when their actions, behaviours and routines don't align with somebody that would have those things, there's this delta, and the gap in between is like maybe their depression or their unease or their unhappiness with life. But how can we ever get to that point if we don't start to join the dots with the kind of things that person would become? And it's not fake it till you make it, it's be it till you become it.
Yeah, it's such a strong topic as well for me, especially at the moment, because I am really, as I move into those sort of, which I feel honestly in my prime, and in this society that we've got now, which is demonizes age, right? And then people start to accept that, the people at my age, they start to grow their bellies out here, they can't even see their feet, and then they start to accept the fact, well, I'm 50, so I'll now go to the doctors because we get ill. Yeah.
How many times in the gym when you were in your 20s and 30s do you get an older guy come and say it's easy for you? Like, I get it all the time now. So I'm in my early 30s now. I've got a bit of a baby face, so I look a bit younger. But so many guys will be like, it's all right for you, wait till you have kids. Or it's all right for you, wait till you're busier. And I'm like, well, I'm fucking busy with my business. I'm busy with this podcast. I don't know about you, right? But, you won't be quite as ripped when you're that age. I'm like, what? Don't put that on me. Like, that's your lived experience, not mine.
Mate, they're just finding a reason that they're not, you know what I mean? And this is how people are offloading their own potential they're finding an excuse in that. And it's like, what we were talking about before, that the thing is with men as well, I find, is the fact that, the times are changing, and for right or for wrong, I think, the fact that they've demolished the whole family unit is terrible. I think it's terrible. But the thing is, as you say, if you have got kids, right? This is the point I was coming around to. If you have got kids, right, and they're constantly got their heads stuck in the TV or their phones, they're looking for a hero. You know what I mean? And in the absence of not seeing it in their dad, they'll find one on TV, and this is like all the superhero movies and everything else. And it's like taking back ownership and being your kid's hero again. It's like with your wife as well. Does she see you and your kids? Does she see you like a credit card with legs sticking out, legs and arms sticking with a big belly on it or whatever? You know what I mean? Or does she see you as the man, the male, the protector? And this is really about men taking back that authenticity and also having a bit of ownership and responsibility. For me, like, let me give you an example of this, right? A lot of people, they are doing everything to please the audience. As long as they will sacrifice the feeling of feeling good, as long as they look good. It's like people with they've had the best car on the drive, and we've got double glazing and all this bullshit.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses when they're absolutely in financial turmoil, which is causing them to argue they're having a shit life. It's horrible inside that house. And it's understanding that for me personally, right, I can let down people on Facebook. I can let down people on Instagram. I won't, but I can do. The people I won't let down is the people inside that house. Now, to me, to my wife and to her, my stepson, William, if they see me saying I'm going to do stuff and don't do it, if they see me lazing around, growing my stomach out here, being lazy, being pathetic, that is the worst damage I could do. Because if the people closest to me see me as a failure, that for me is unacceptable.
Do you want to turn your LinkedIn into a selling machine rather than a time sink? Well, that's exactly what I'm helping you do with my step-by-step guide that shows you exactly how I've built my brand, generated inbound leads, and turned my network into paying clients. It covers everything on how to write your profile, post structure and templates you can use, as well as outbound messages to your ideal clients to book meetings with them. This is the exact framework that I've used myself and teach inside my coaching program, condensed into one short, actionable guide that you can implement straight away. You can grab your copy at the link in the show notes or DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn, the word guide, and I'll send it straight to you. Every year, Ollie, I do a birthday solo special. So this year it was like 19 lessons at 33, the year before that 13 lessons at 32, whatever it was. And one of the phrases that I came up with was win offline to win online. And I think a lot of people are focused on the flex on Instagram, the ability to get a little bit of likes, a little bit of a dopamine spike. But most real, true, like sizable wins or things that have magnitude come from the stuff that we do in private. So stack private victories to showcase public trophies or wins. And that's exactly what you're saying there. You could maybe hold yourself up as a higher version of yourself on Instagram, but if behind closed doors, for yourself in particular, and for those that you love and you care about the most, if they're not seeing you do the things that you said you were going to do, when you said you were going to do them, how you were going to do them, then regardless of how Joe Public sees you, that won't feel great. We mentioned the Newtonic Tans sat on the table. One of the first guests on the show when I started was Chris Williamson, who has an amazing podcast, Modern Wisdom, huge inspiration for me, really supportive of what I've tried to do here. He taught me in that very first conversation during lockdown 2020 that the persona is incapable of feeling love or praise. So the persona is a version of yourself that you pretend to be. So when the praise comes, it feels hollow and empty. So for example, I have never had somebody on my podcast that I've only had them on to try and grow the audience base or the listeners. Because if the numbers and the revenue and the streams and the subscribers came in, it wouldn't feel the same as if I have somebody like yourself who I've really wanted to talk to for a number of years now. We got an introduction when I'm out in Dubai and I'm like, brilliant, I'm having Ollie on the show. I'm excited to talk to him. If this episode does loads of numbers, I'll feel great because I did it from an aligned intention. Whereas if I found somebody out here that's like, I don't know, in whatever industry, and they've got 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, and the show went absolutely nuts, but I didn't enjoy the conversation and I didn't think it was valuable for the listeners for optimizing their brain, their body, or their business, it would feel utterly hollow. But the metrics if on the screen might be like, oh, that got 1 million plays. Ollie's episode only got 10,000. It doesn't fucking matter to me because the 10,000 mean a lot more because the people that listen to that were moved or improved in a particular way. The people that listen, the millions that listen to that got nothing from it other than a bit of superficial kind of entertainment. That's not for me.
It's that density of energy, isn't it? Around the subject. That for me, that example that you've just given there is absolutely, my example of people in my house, my wife. They
matter way more.
Yeah, they matter way more. Like if they was to see me, right, like talking on Instagram about how disciplined I am, how strict I am, how I jump in the ice bath all the time, how I don't drink alcohol, and then in that house, I'm like, the door's shut, I don't give a fuck, snorting coke and jumping in, never getting in the ice bath. They would see me as an absolute failure. I could not have that because also, not only do I want my wife to look up to me and respect me, but the example I'm setting to my stepson who's only 16, for him to see that, a lot of people have said to me in the past, how do I bring my kids up to be the best that they can be? You be the best that you can be, because they'll take everything that you do and they'll copy that. So, be the best version of you, and everyone around you will. I mean, it's that. It's not a cliche, is it?
I think it's going back a little bit more towards our tribal and our kind of ancestral heritage. Like I'm very traditional in many ways. Like I'm really looking forward to being married. I'm looking forward to having children, and I want to be the role model, the provider, the support network for that household. And I think we've been told by the education system and our media programming that to be that as a man is misogynistic or controlling or negative, and it's about completely rejecting that, unplugging, as we discussed from the very start, and instead leaning into some of our more evolutionary instincts and behaviors that make us feel good. Primal, that's the perfect term, Ollie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we should all, one of the biggest things to me, Cole, when I went through my, I don't like to call it an awakening. It was almost like my, when I was in that house 2014 before the TV show, and I wanted to understand how this system worked. I respected how amazing this system is. And it was really starting to align with understanding that this system has been around for a lot longer than any technology, but none of us are given a handbook, right? You know what I mean? None of us are told how to work this machine, this operating system. We actually know how to operate that, don't we? Like the amount of people that can operate that, but don't know nothing about this.
Because they spend more hours of the day on the screen than they do on their body.
They do. You know what? Another thing, while we're on the topic at the phone, I've got the prop here in front of me as well. I just can't stand the fact, like, this is a great servant, a terrible master. You know what I mean? And that's technology all over, isn't it? Great servant, terrible master. And the amount of people I love to buy, but I'm screaming at people inside myself because I can't scream at them, obviously. But, I'm out early in the morning training and I see, like, women, for instance, they got the baby out and the crispness of the beautiful morning, the blue sky and everything. And they've got one hand on the thing and they've got that like this. And I'm like, Jesus, they've got people like running around with this. Like, even holding it for me is like, I can't.
We want to detach because you know a lot about energy and frequency, and there's a level of energy and frequency that's coming through that.
Yeah.
Even if I'm doing one of my deep work blocks in the morning and I'm on the laptop, which again you're plugged into but it's conscious, get the phone out of the room and out of sight, because even when it's in sight or in the room, your chimp brain will scream at you to go and look at it. Oh, just check, because you put a post up earlier. Let's see if anyone's commented on it. And it's almost like sometimes it's busy work as well. So like I'm writing a slide deck for a keynote that I'm giving to an insurance company where I'm doing some sales coaching. That's the task at hand. That matters most. I'm going to go in, I'm going to deliver value. We're going to increase their profits, their revenue, all that good stuff that makes me feel great. But I did a post on Instagram last night that was getting a lot of comments and I was really enjoying the comments. And my phone is telling me, go over there and look at those comments, Colin, and reply to them. Or check your DMs in case somebody said a nice thing about the podcast, because that'll feel good as well. But no, keep the goal to go. And if you can see the phone and you can feel its vibrations, you get drawn towards it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is creative procrastination.
Yes, busy work.
Yeah, busy work, because the brain is going, but this is work. This is something that I need to do, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, I see this a lot with William as well. He's 16, and I see this a lot. It's like they won't finish your job properly because the phone's there. You know what I mean? They won't want to go out doing stuff because they know that, and it's a subconscious thing that they won't, that'll be time that they can't check their phone. You know what I mean? It's so destructive because you imagine it almost like it's like a parent, right? There's got to be a parent. Well, unfortunately, a lot of parents get this wrong, but there comes a time where the lion cub has to leave the mum. You know what I mean? It starts having to solve its own problems. And this is where I think a lot of parenting, I'm not here to pretend I'm the best parent or anything. I had a terrible time as a parent, to be quite honest. But one thing I do know, like, as we brought William up, it's like the natural thing is always to provide the solution. So you've got a problem. You imagine like the lion cub or the young boy, for instance, problem, parent, problem, parent, problem, parent. They don't sit there and solve the problem themselves. There has to be a point where you stop providing the solutions for them, because to me, it's like child abuse. If you don't, you imagine how that child is then going to go into life. They're always going to be looking for something for the answers that's outside of themselves, where the answers all are. So it's like, it's like, for instance, every time, at the moment, when we talk about something and there's a bit of disagreement, the phone's out, ChatGPT. Not me, it's like, and I'm like, just put it away. You're not allowing yourself the cognitive, creative beauty that's in there to start figuring out stuff for yourself.
It's the speed of it as well. I was of the generation where when we wanted to log on to like MSN chat bot at school, you would have to use your parents' dial-up broadband, and that would mean that mum and dad couldn't be on the phone. Yeah. So you had a limited time when you could be on there, and you had to be patient because things didn't come through immediately. Whereas now, if I have to wait, if I log onto the Wi-Fi at $5 at JBR or the Cove Beach next door. It might take a couple of minutes to do it, and I'm almost like chasing for my messages to come through when previously you had to wait maybe an hour to go and check, and then you logged off, and then you saw your friends at school the next day, so you didn't catch up with them for like the 4 hours before you went to bed, so you were a bit more unplugged, and you had a bit more patience, whereas now everything's so instant and it's so frictionless. So if, for example, I've got a bit of uncertainty about a question or a bit of data that I want to look at, I can just ask ChatGPT straight away, whereas I never give myself the chance to sit within it and process it and maybe cognitively deal with it myself.
But this is such a valuable practice for people to do now. And I mean, we all want that instant gratification, right? You know, it's like the purchase on Amazon or whatever. And I think
Kareem delivery.
Yeah, exactly. The Kareem delivery. And it's like last night I actually did it because I wanted to test it out. You know, it's Christmas and everything else.
That's
and
unbelievable, isn't it?
InstaShop they got here. So there's actually like people waiting at the supermarket for your order. And I'm like, oh, let's just test this out. And it was like, within minutes, there was like Quality Streets being delivered to the door.
Straight to the door.
I was like, this is mental.
It's the age of convenience.
But the age of convenience, absolutely. But the thing is, it's such a valuable thing to get into, to actually stop yourself. Just stop, just pause, stop being so impatient, count, do something, but just to take away that instant gratification.
Do you have any practices for reducing that instant gratification that you utilize in your life?
I do, because I practice it myself, and it's about distracting yourself. You know, at that moment in time, you know, if you sit there waiting, it's like waiting for the kettle to boil or whatever. You know, it's a painful experience, but just extract yourself, go and do something different. You need to keep your brain active, you need to do something different. So
on one of my recent solo Q&As, somebody was asking me about dealing with cravings in deficit when they're trying to cut for their holiday or cut for an event or whatever. And I was saying, one of the best ways to not be hungry is to be busy.
Yeah.
And that sounds really a bit like trite, doesn't it? But also I'm a big believer in changing state. So you've just finished your meal. It's maybe 600 calories versus the maybe 800-900 you were having before now, because you're trying to cut down and get a bit leaner and meaner. Finish your meal, wash your plate, and go for a walk, because you've shifted state, and then your brain intrinsically knows from like a habits and a cues perspective that, okay, my meal is now finished now.
Yeah.
Or brush your teeth, wash the plate, go out for a walk. You've changed, you've distracted yourself from the fact that you might be hungry, and then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But if you never give yourself the chance to shift, and instead you eat your meal sat on the couch watching TV with your phone in your hand as well, so you're dual screening, your dopamine and your serotonin and all that, so just firing off in every single direction. You put the plate down, you're like, straight to the cupboards. Ice cream, whatever we got in the house that I want to have. Whereas if you make conscious choices to move your focus and your locus of direction, then we put ourselves in a better spot.
Yeah, I think this comes into the term like the freedom lives in discipline. Do you know what I mean? It's so, and this is why I have this thing called
the whole Jocko thing, isn't it? Discipline.
It's not
freedom,
actually. He
Oh,
stole it.
interesting.
He stole it. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not having that.
There's nothing original in this world, is there?
Nothing was created or destroyed. Everyone's out there trying to, everyone on social media trying to think they've invented fire. Nothing is created or destroyed. We're just borrowing it for someone else. You know what I mean? So it's
put
just
our own spin on it.
Put our own spin on it. But yeah, it wasn't. I heard it a long time ago by someone else. But anyway, there is so much truth in that. Freedom is in discipline, and it's when you have that. Like that's why I have these things called. With my group, I have the Zen commandments, and it's those rules that you won't step outside of. Like for me, like eating OMAD, when I'm doing my OMAD, I eat from 4 till 7. I won't have anything. A lot of people say, oh, I eat my OMAD. Oh, but I do have breakfast. Well, you're not eating OMAD then. You know what I mean? But it's the Zen commandments. And I find that so much easier, like having the 4 till 7 window. You are not eating. That's your commandment to yourself. That could be the fact you don't drink alcohol on weekdays or whatever it might be. That is your Zen commandment. But in the world where you don't have any rules, there's too much flexibility. Yeah. So it's so important people have discipline, and that gives you the freedom. It gives you clarity.
The episode I just recorded before with Dan Lawrence will come out after this one, and he was speaking about just having 3, 4, 5 non-negotiables that are all relatively small, but if you stack them up for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we start to get a positive feedback loop from the results. So for example, he was recommending 10,000 steps a day, totally arbitrary number, but let's increase our TDE, stick to it. Listening to 15 minutes on Audible every single day. Oh, 15 minutes on Audible, that'll only be like half a chapter, one chapter. Okay, do it for 3 weeks. You'll work your way through that book that you always promised you were going to read, but you never have. And if you start to stack these things up and you have hard and fast rules of what good looks like, and that's been a really interesting thing for me since going full-time with coaching. Many people don't know what good looks like across a week, particularly with the sales process. They're like, oh, when the pipeline looks a bit dry, I do a load of outreach on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, But what does good look like across a week? Oh, like, well, my forecast is down 5K for next month, so I did 10 outreaches. Okay, but what happens if we just decided that every single week we do 10 outreaches on the Monday, 10 on a Friday, and we do a follow-up call in the middle of the week? Then we know that good looks like 20 messages, 20 calls.
Yeah.
And then regardless of how you feel, you're not going on vibes. You just know that what good looks like. So
It's
you
a
know
process,
that you know
isn't
what you know with OMAD.
Yeah.
I know what good looks like. Between 4 and 7, I have my foods. The foods are from a good quality, and then I'm fasting the rest of the time. If I don't do that, I know that I've actually not adhered to the plan, and it's not been good.
Yeah.
If we don't know what good looks like, how can we ever assess the quality of our inputs to then realise what our outputs might look like?
Isn't it? It's relative, but for me to have that, it's like order is the key to everything. It's like even when my life was in a really bad place, one thing I did do is make sure that bedroom, which is the only thing I owned at that moment, I had everything in order. Because if you come into something and it's just chaos everywhere, your bed's not made, there's clothes everywhere, there's shit all over the place, the bin's not been emptied, in your head, your life is an absolute mess. You know what I mean? So it's about creating a level of order. And for me, it's like having those hard and fast rules. People hate that word discipline, but for me, that is the disciple within. That is when you are steered by a greater good. You know what I mean? And you are dedicated to that process. So that's where I feel so much freedom, and I've so much around that.
Yeah, because with that comes down the line. So the freedom that I'm having now, coming out here to Dubai to record podcasts and deliver coaching workshops, that came from the years of mastering my craft within sales, getting really good at communicating, doing lots and lots of podcast episodes with various different guests, whether that was for the outreach that I did, the referrals that I got, the research that I do in terms of preparation, so I know the guests and I can ask good questions, listening back to the episodes as game tape and learning about the filler words that I want to remove, and now I'm pretty much flawless when it comes to that, which is great. All of that happened in the background, and that was discipline over time to continue doing the reps. And then the freedom I have now is to come and interview 8 amazing guests when I'm out here, deliver 2 coaching workshops, go as a guest on 2 podcasts, and just happen to be in the sun and training. Amazing. But there's a phrase that is coming up in the show quite a lot, and interestingly, Chris Williamson and Matthew McConaughey, of all people, spoke about it on Modern Wisdom. Model the rise, not the result. So if somebody maybe wants to start a podcast or wants to be a speaker and a coach and a business owner like yourself, model what Ollie was doing to get there, not what he's maybe doing necessarily right now. Now, there's lessons from your lifestyle and your approach just now, but let's look at the things that you did along the way that got you to the point you're at just now.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting concept. And the thing is as well is if you always copy someone else to the letter, you could be reducing your own potential. And that beautiful everyone is a unique individual, right? So it's okay to follow a journey, but you've got to allow yourself to come to the forefront at some point. I think it's been stated so many times already. I heard it from time to time again that the most powerful energy there is authenticity.
That's being truly yourself. Yeah.
Being truly yourself, and not, everyone knows when they're not being authentic, and that is more powerful than love.
You feel it in your gut, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've made quite a lot of big decisions recently, and I'm typically somebody that's very logical, but I've made sure that I've listened to my intuition, and a couple of things that I did for that were just lying in bed at night, eye mask on, bit of mouth tape, trying to optimize the sleep. How does my gut feel if I do this and if I don't do this? How do I feel like in my nervous system? As well as logically, I've looked at the facts, the figures, the outcomes, the upside, the downside. What is the financial cost? What's the opportunity cost? What's the time cost? All that stuff. But also, how do I actually feel about it? And that's perhaps leaning into the authenticity side of things. That if I do this, how does my nervous system and my heart, and if I want to be spiritual, my soul feel off the back of that as well? So I really like what you're saying there, Ollie. Yeah,
no, 100%. When it comes to your nervous system, this is something a lot of people get wrong, because we have to create this coherence, right? And this is why the breath work and everything, I've more recently started getting into the breath work, because you can sit there, you can have a million affirmations, you can tell yourself that you're going to be wealthy, you can say that I'm going to have $1 million in the bank, all this, that, and the other, but those words will do nothing if your nervous system is saying something else. It's like saying that you want to be a millionaire and checking your bank balance every 5 minutes because you're panicking. You know what I mean? There's this absolute contradiction. Do you know what I mean? So when it comes to your nervous system, this is what you have to get in tune. You have to make the internal match the external, because the majority of people out there, I'm manifesting all the time and I'm doing my meditations, doing this, nothing's changing. It's the nervous system that's the control center that we need to get in check.
100%. Ollie, one of my last questions for you. Many people will be listening to this at the turn of 2025 and looking into 2026. What would be your parting piece of advice for them to have a really successful, happy, aligned year ahead?
I think really is the fact that we should be aiming for something that's really going to stretch us. You know, at the end of the day, you know, when my life was a mess, I created a dream, and that was to have a business called Breakpoint. And that business totally contradicted who I was in that moment. You know, when I looked at the business model and what it was and how it changed people's lives, you know, my internal dialogue was telling something very different, very critical, et cetera, et cetera. But the more I lived in the passion of the outcome, the more it started to take shape. And I think really people need to start creating a goal that scares them but excites them at the same time, and don't think that you have to deal with it like a mortgage. You know, when you're going for a mortgage, what can I afford? You know what I mean? That's not, when it comes to your goals, it's all about what you can't afford. It's all about what seems unrealistic. And don't think that you need to see the path to the target. If you can see the path to the target on the goal that you're creating, it means the goal is too small.
Let's just go one step forward at a time.
Yeah.
Ollie, amazing note for us to wrap up on. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
If the listeners want to continue the conversation, where should they head towards? Where they can connect with you?
Yeah, basically the best place to go is Instagram, on there, and then you can find all my other channels and things after that. So I do a lot of online courses and stuff, which I'm very proud of. A lot of tapping into the subconscious, which is really where the work needs to be done.
And your incredible backlog of books now as well.
Yeah, 6 books now to my name, so could be another one around the corner.
Good man. Thank you so much, Ollie, and thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you again very, very soon.